Rude girl refuses to move her hair, so the person behind her makes her regret it forever. Flying can be a stressful ordeal that many people hate. Maria was one of them. The young woman was traveling alone on a long and fully booked flight. Maria had expected to be inconvenienced by the tight legroom and crying babies, but she had no idea that another woman would become the bane of her problems. This passenger kept going out of their way to be rude to Maria, and rather than stay quiet and take their behavior, the young woman decided to teach them a lesson they're likely never to forget. The best part, all of it was caught on camera, and millions watched as Maria got vengeance. Maria had never been fond of flying. She found the long lines, the crowded airports, and the general atmosphere to be soul-crushing. The young woman avoided them as much as possible. But despite her best efforts, she was starting by the gate of a 14-hour flight. She was traveling alone and had forgotten to bring a book to entertain herself, so she had decided to people-watch instead. Maria was mesmerized as she watched families rush towards their gates and couples walk hand-in-hand together. It all felt like a fascinating social observation, which was keeping the 20-something entertained through the long wait to board the plane. And of course, just as the flight was meant to take off, it was announced that it was delayed another 3 hours. While this usually would have annoyed Maria to no end, this time around it was different. She genuinely enjoyed watching strangers until she noticed one girl loudly talking to someone on the phone. This girl, who seemed to be around the same age as Maria, was practically screaming at whoever they were calling. She could hear every word she was saying, most of which were curse words. Maria was shocked at how another person could A, talk to someone like that, and B, do it in public where it was evident that everyone could hear you. But it's evident that this strange girl didn't care what anyone thought. This continued for more than half an hour, and despite several people giving the girl rude looks and some even telling her to quiet down, she refused to stop screaming. Instead, she kept cursing even louder in defiance. Maria was pretty far away from the girl, so she could see how agitated everyone was around her. Young kids and teenagers were sitting by, and it was clear that nobody appreciated her screaming such profanities. Thankfully, when Maria saw a flight attendant walking towards the girl who was still on the phone, she assumed that it would all end soon. But the exact opposite happened. The situation escalated. The girl redirected all her anger at the flight attendant and began screaming at them to leave her alone. It was clear that this girl loved causing a scene. But just as all this was happening, the flight finally began to board. Maria swiftly grabbed her things and walked towards the plane, hoping and praying that the rude girl was seated as far away as possible from her. But unfortunately, she looked like she wanted trouble. The young woman sat down, and when she saw a middle-aged man sitting beside her seat, she was extremely relieved. The man was covered in tattoos, but smiled at Maria as she sat down, and she instantly felt at ease around him. But unfortunately, Maria's luck took a turn when the rude girl ended up sitting right in front of her. While it wasn't ideal that Maria was this close to her, she thought that surely the girl couldn't do her any harm sitting in front of her. Of course, Maria was utterly wrong. As soon as the flight took off, the young girl promptly splayed her long, rather smelly hair across the back of her seat. Unfortunately, they were so long that the girl's hair touched Maria's tray table, and strands of her hair landed in Maria's water cup. The young woman was baffled. She stared at this man sitting next to her. Both of them were confused. What type of person does this? Clearly, this girl knew what she's doing. Maria disliked her from the start, but this was unacceptable. This girl was going out of her way to inconvenience Maria. She tried to look around to track down a flight attendant so she could complain about this, but after searching for several minutes, she couldn't find anyone. It was clear that this flight was definitely understaffed. Maria sighed and patiently waited for an attendant to walk by, and despite pressing the call button several times, no one showed up. Meanwhile, the girl's hair flowed all over Maria's tray table, and it even seemed like the rude girl was intentionally shaking her head to bother Maria. But this couldn't be right. Maria had done nothing to this girl. Half an hour had passed, and this 14-hour flight was the longest of Maria's life, primarily because of the girl and her hair. So finally, she cleared her throat very loudly and gently moved the girl's hair to the side. Surely this would be enough of a message. But to Maria's amazement, the girl slammed her hair back with such anger that the man sitting next to her flinched back. It was evident that the rude girl was intentionally doing this. The man beside her raised his eyebrows and motioned Maria to talk to the girl. This was beyond unacceptable. So Maria leaned forward and tapped the girl on the shoulder. She assumed that all of this was a big mistake. Maria smiled and remained friendly as she didn't want to escalate the situation. "I'm sorry to bother you, but your hair's hanging all over the back of this seat." The girl stared back at her and replied with an evil, "So?" Maria lost her temper and rudely replied, "Well, it's almost hanging in my drink." This should have been enough for anyone with sense of manners, but this rude girl clearly didn't think so. Rather than give Maria a reply, she made a disgusted face and put her headphones on again and started blasting her music. The young woman stared at the girl, waiting for a reply, but all she got was silence. Maria couldn't believe that this girl was ignoring her simple request. The man sitting next to her had witnessed everything, and he was equally angry. He pressed the call button, hoping they could talk to a flight attendant and sort this issue out. But after waiting another half an hour, no one showed up. That's when both decided to take matters into their own hands. If this girl didn't listen to their polite request, she would learn how to behave on a plane. The young man showed Maria what he had in his carry-on, and immediately she knew what she wanted to do. But before she could agree to such an extreme measure, Marie thought to try once more to talk to the girl. She quickly scribbled a note on a piece of paper. "Hey, can you please move your hair from the back of the seat since it's inconveniencing us? Thank you so much." Maria again tapped the girl on the shoulder and handed her the note. The girl looked disgusted at the note, and even without glancing at what Maria had written, she made direct eye contact and threw away the letter. Maria noticed how the girl even smirked while she did it. Naturally, Maria was furious. Obviously, the girl had no plans of moving her hair, and while she assumed that Maria would do nothing but deal with this rude behavior, she was wrong, and soon was about to learn a well-deserved lesson. The man sitting next to her had shown Maria an electric razor. He motioned toward the rude girl's head and urged Maria to take it and shave it all off. But this felt like an extreme response, and she worried it would only worsen this horrible situation. Maria was still hopeful that all of this could be avoided. She just needed to find a way to get through to this girl. Indeed, there had to be another way than to shave the stranger's hair off. In a final bid to find some middle ground, Maria tapped the girl's shoulder again. But the girl brushed away her hand and physically looked irritated. This made Maria's blood boil. But when the girl turned out slowly, the young woman thought that eventually she'd get the resolution she deserved. But to her complete surprise, the girl looked Maria straight in the eye and said, "I know what I'm doing and I'm not going to stop." She had a wide, cocky smile, and that's when Maria knew that this girl deserved what was coming for her. The man beside her witnessed all of this, and Maria knew what she needed to do. With one swift move, she smoothly took the razor and cut off the bulk of the rude girl's hair. Her partner in crime recorded all of it, and during all of this, the girl was none the wiser about what was happening to her hair. Then with a final tap on the shoulder, Maria showed the girl the entire video, and the look on the girl's face was priceless. After that, she let out a blood-curdling scream that finally got the flight attendant's attention. Of course, Maria was severely lectured about what she had done by the flight attendants and a few other passengers who had witnessed the whole ordeal. However, they all stood up for Maria and corroborated her story. The public's sympathy towards Maria allowed her to leave the airplane with only a fine. But what she didn't expect was that the man who filmed the whole incident would go on to post the video online. With the backstory, the clip ranked millions of people who all agreed with what Maria did. The story is a work of fiction, created for entertainment. Characters and events are the products of the author's imagination. The images shown are used for illustration only.